Yeah, here we go. Testing. Hello. Yeah, there's always a numberless countdown. It's never a numbered one. Why do you expect a numbered countdown from me? Oh, is it? Hopefully that's not too loud for you guys. Is it too loud? Let me know if it's too loud. What's perpendicular to the direction of the... What are we talking about? We good? We good? We good, we good. Okay, I'm gonna... 987. Right, I wasn't muted. Yay! I took an initiative. Give me 1 second. I need to get this thing off my fucking... Wrong. Wrong tab. My bad. Here we go. You're back up now. My life. Okay, let's see if this works. Yeah, this is working. Okay, this is working. Let me make sure everything's working. Echo. Do it once more. All right, how's everyone doing? So I took an initiative. I told Chesh I was gonna do it, and I have been postponing it forever. And then, because this weekend was long weekend, I volunteered again to do it, and now I'm bloody tired because I sat back and read through the whole thing again, making sure that all my notes were correct and I didn't get anything wrong. And I sat down and actually rewrote the whole thing that I was supposed to, because Chesh said that she might use it for Debate Hub later. Maybe she might like make episodes of it, or cut it out and use it on Debate Hub. I'm like, oh my god, if it goes on Debate Hub, I need to make sure everything is correct and I know what I'm talking about, and just not like, make shit up as I go, blah, 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 blah. So I went down and almost redid the whole thing. So here I am. Now I'm extremely tired. My back hurts. I ain't complaining. That's just how I stream in perpetuity, I guess. But thank you everyone for coming today, and thanks Chesh for letting me stream on her channel. Yes, it's me live. I have taken over once more. So people might be thinking that what's this on my screen, right? And there's you can see some abstract underneath it and all that. So let me just bring it up. If I can. This is what it is. Let me just get rid of this. Here we go. So this is a paper that was written by someone, and it talks about, and the title is How the Presumption of Atheism by the way of a semiotic square of opposition leads to a semantic collapse. This was written some time ago. It was written almost 4 years ago. So I thought I would go through it and see if my critical thinking skills are still up there or not. But it took a lot of effort on my part because it's been a while since I went through a paper properly. So I was also a bit overwhelmed in the beginning with the language, so I had to get used to the language again. And so go back, open a dictionary again, and go through a lot of reminding myself of what terms mean and everything. So if you see the language here and if you're not sure what it means, don't worry, I'll try my very best to explain. If I can't, then just ask me. I'm quite sure I have something somewhere in my notes that I've put down, because my notes have come down to almost 8,000 words now about this, because there was some things that I needed to actually type down, like this is how I'm going to explain it, because this is, I don't know why someone would write a paper in such complex language. You would want people to understand it, but it depends from person to person. Usually when I wrote my paper, my language would be very simple and straightforward. And if there were any words that I use that I thought that wouldn't, that a lay person wouldn't understand, I would give an appendix at the bottom, or a list of, appendix at the bottom to give definitions. But this paper does not have that, which is fine. Everybody writes their paper differently, right? So yeah, my back hurts, Smitty. It does hurt a lot. What are you, over 30? Yes, I am over 30 actually. If you don't mind, I am over 30. Okay, so I'll just say this. Before we start, right? I'll give you a 1-sentence summary of what my criticism is of this paper. Because everything what I say tonight will, is going to follow along those lines. So according to my personal opinion, I don't know, maybe Intrigued can go through it later if they find time, or someone else in the live chat, if they find time, they can go through it and correct me if I got it wrong, right? I'm always open to criticism and to be, corrected, if I might dare say. So, but according to me, this paper is it's done a thing that it's mistaken overlap between broad categories for logical equivalence between two positions. So that's what it has done. That's why the title of my stream today was the same. When someone mistakes overlap between broad categories for logical equivalence between two positions, or between positions, not just two positions. Yeah, that's what I see as the basic problem with this paper. I will try to be fair from the start. There is a real issue here about terminology. There's a real issue here about whether broad and narrow uses of a term can create confusion. But confusion is not the same thing as collapse. And overlap is not the same thing as identity, right? It's like a Venn diagram, right? Two categories can overlap and something can fall between that overlap, right? But that doesn't mean that those two things that are overlapping are the same thing that's falling in that category, right? So I thought I would do some basic house rules before we started. That's why that image was there. And guys, let me know if I'm making sense or not. If I'm not, I'll try and explain it in much more plainer terms. But I trust you guys will get it. I think so. I might get lost in somewhere between, and you might guys have to bring me back to the track. It's already happening, isn't it? Yeah, it's already happening. So this is what the image is, right? So as I go through the paper, we will see a lot of symbolism being used and abbreviations being used, and a lot of logical statements being used, and a lot of logical tables being used, right? So basically, if you see a symbol S there, it's a subject. It can be a person, right? You can say B is believing in something, right? And G is God exists. That's what it's called, lowercase g. So if you see BSG, we read it as highlighting, we start with the S first, it's in the middle. So we will start with the thing that's in the middle and say S, then we'll go to the left and say S believes. Then we go to the right and it says God exists, right? S believes God exists. Middle to left to right. That's how we go, right? Then if you see BS and this little sleepy line here, it's a negation symbol, and it's against G, so it's standing before G, so it's negating God exists. So it means not, or God does not exist. So, right? So as we start with S from the middle, then go to the left to the right. So it says the subject believes that the God does not exist. Same thing, negation before B. So it means not believe, right? So again, center to the left to the right, S subject does not believe that God, G, exists. And again, the negation against both B and G. So again, center to the left, to the right. S does not believe, because it's not believe. S does not believe that God does not exist. Right? So that's how it will go. I'll try and keep repeating it as we go. So obviously we'll start with the abstract of this paper. Let me just double check and see. Okay, why it's not updating? Give me a second, guys. The chat doesn't like to get updated. I might have to move it to a different screen. Give me 1 second. Sorry. Because if I and if I do this, if I go this way, yeah, that's better, I guess. Yeah. Then we'll bring it down here. Yeah, I think so. That's better. Yeah, now I will be able to read your comments properly. Yeah, your painting is under there, Chesh. I know. I use your art. You don't mind it, do you? So yeah. So EMP Network from the live chat said, "Oh, for fuck's sake, Steve, no one talks like this. No one talks with equation-like language. I swear he does it to try and seem intellectually smart." I think so. It's a paper, so it will have such language. So I cannot hold it against him. Honestly, I cannot hold it against him. But if he wanted to reach more people, he should have simplified it, in my opinion. Just saying. Right? Or at least, like I'm trying to do, provide some definitions or some representation of what logical statements mean. Right? Not just throw it in there and let people figure it out. You could say, yeah, he tries to bully people with jargon he doesn't want to explain. I've noticed this on his Twitter. When he brings in his paper in, he starts using this logical like language in there and functional language, and I'm like, you don't need to do that unless you're trying to confuse people and you don't understand your own argument yourself. Just saying. It shouldn't be hard for you to put it in words. And if people talk to you back and argue with you back with words, it shouldn't be hard. But that's just me, right? I'm not going to, yeah. Okay, so we're going to quickly read through the abstract, and then I will come and start talking about, what it says or criticize it from the start, because from the start it's like I'm like all right, let's go. So it says defining subalternations with the same semantic term will result in a semantic collapse of terms, right? So what does alternations mean, right? This is a one-way falls under relation. That's what subalternations means. If the stronger upper position is true, the weaker lower position must also be true, but it's not the other way around. So in simple terms, if you give the big broad boxes the same names as the smaller narrow boxes, then the person standing in the overlap gets both names, but that does not prove the position themselves have become the same. Right? For example, apples and oranges, two positions, they overlap somewhere, and there's a category of grapes that falls in that, in that overlapping category. Doesn't mean that apples and oranges have become grapes, right? So it's a simple Venn diagram, right? So what the abstract is doing is it's coming out swinging. In essence, it's saying that we define atheism in weak or negative case. And if subalternations are labeled with the same semantic term, then a square of opposition shows that some can be semantically atheist, theist, and agnostic at once. Now, this is a little complicated, so I'll just come down to the simpler language that I typed down later. Sorry. The first problem is that the abstract does not distinguish clearly between ambiguity, overlap, or collapse, right? If we read further, it says, if Flew's presumption of atheism is accepted, then that atheism should be thought of in the negative case, where subalternations for both positive atheism and negative atheisms are denoted by the same term of atheism. As I described already, subalternations don't work like that. It can be logically demonstrated by way of a semiotic square of opposition that it will effectively result in the possibility of someone concurrently being semantically an atheist, theist, and agnostic. This semantic collapse of terms lowers the axiological value of the term atheism, and as such is insufficient grounds to reject Flew's arguments. Right? So the first problem is the abstract does not distinguish clearly between what's ambiguity, what's overlap, and what's collapse. They do not define it at all. Ambiguity means that a word has more than one possible sense. Overlap means two broad categories may share some of the same cases. Collapse would mean that categories themselves have stopped doing any distinct work. Right? The paper that what we have seen here as the abstract states, it needs to prove the strongest point, collapse. But from what I understood it, as I read through it, what it actually does is it just only establishes overlap and maybe some ambiguity. That's what it does. Right? So suppose I use the term atheism in a broader sense than just belief that God does not exist. Right? Suppose I use it to mean not believing that God exists. That broader bucket may include more than one kind of person, yeah? It may include somebody who positively believes there's no God. It may include somebody who suspends the judgment. That can create a a terminological problem. It's a terminology problem. But it's still not a logical collapse. It's a terminology problem. It's not a logical collapse. The second problem with the abstract is this line that is there about someone being atheist, theist, and agnostic at the same time. That sounds it's dramatization, and I'm surprised that something like that has been put on a paper, but I guess it's Steve, that's up to him, right? We see later that it only works by switching some strong senses of those terms to weak umbrella senses, and then pretending that sharing an umbrella label is the same as holding the same position. Right? So he does this switch between holding position and labels and umbrella of labels. And I think so he doesn't realize that, in my opinion. He's so lost in the functionality and the logical terms and everything and the symbolism of it. He doesn't recognize that he has switched the language later on. And that's kind of like, and it's been, and I don't know if he has revisited his paper or not. He should revisit his paper, in my opinion. Right? So this abstract right from the start, it's trying to set a tone of the paper in a way that it's trying to be rhetorically strong, but logically it's jumping ahead. It's trying to tell the reader that the result is going to be devastating. What it actually needs to do is to prove that categories become identical, and I don't think this paper will get there. Right? I will try to be fair, though, that the abstract does it raises a legitimate concern. Right? The concern is that if you use one word to cover both a narrow assertive assertive position and a broader non-belief position, then the language can become blurry. As I said, confusion is not the same as as I said, terminology or confusion is not the same as logical collapse, right? So the concern would be using broad and narrow senses of the same term that can create ambiguity unless a distinction is made explicit. That would be the fair version of that concern, which is very different from saying that the terms collapse and become logically equivalent. That's very different, right? So my summary of the abstract is this, that the abstract mistakes a possible ambiguity in labeling for a demonstrated collapse of positions. That's what I'm thinking is happening here. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm always happy to correct myself, right? So we have already done this over here. If we allow G to represent the proposition that at least one God exists, or God exists, right? And allow negation of G to represent negation of G, or the proposition that it is not the case that at least one God exists, right? Then with B as the epistemic deposition towards the God of belief, we then can define theism, atheism for any subject S as follows. So he goes through different definitions of theism, right? Weak theism, atheism, weak atheism, then agnostic. Then he goes down to contradictories, which I will explain, and then contraries, and then subcontraries, and then alternations. Don't worry about these functions and stuff. I will explain it. Don't worry about it, right? And then the canonical square of opposition. This is the famous diagram he's always referring to, right? So I will explain all this in simpler terms, because we don't need all this jargon. It's like we don't need it. Once you get what the purpose of the paper is, what it's trying to demonstrate, you don't need all this jargon a lot. So yeah, but it's a good effort, but it's a little disappointing for me, because I would expect more. You don't have to use such. There was no need of these tables and stuff for it, in my opinion. The truth tables and stuff were not required, but okay, I can be wrong, right? Sorry, I almost. Smitty said mine is true, but unfortunately the fact that you just stated is used as a distraction defense for the bad position itself. Probably. Yeah. And probably not worth building an entire personality on. Sure. Yeah. It's like, I would think that you would want to revisit the paper from time to time and say, like, did I get something wrong? And comb through it. Not like just that you're once, presented it and you're done with it. I've seen people who go back to their papers again and again, and they come with different evolutions of it, right? And they publish it again and again because there's something new come up, or they have discovered something new, or they want to correct something. So I don't know why Steve thinks he cannot correct something in this paper, because I think he can start by removing all those fucking tables because they're not required. Whoops, language. That's what I think, right? So he's defining. Whew, okay, here we go. Sorry, my bad. Just give me a second. Let me just get my notes. Where did my notes go? Oh, okay. Gotcha. This is a simple one. That's not that complex. The first three definitions are not that complex, right? So the first one is theism, the belief that the proposition G is true, that I just said, right? If I bring my image up again. BSG, it's that subject believes that God exists, or at least one God exists, right? According to Steve. weak theism, which is the third thing in this, no, not the thing, sorry, the fourth one, right at the bottom, which says subject does not believe that at least one God does not exist, right? That's what weak theism is, according to Steve, right? And then it says, if a theist believes the proposition G to be true, then by rational commitment, they must not believe G to be false. Again, he has changed from belief to whether it's true or not, right? Existence and true are two different, truth are two different things. You could say that truth is a claim of knowledge, actually, right? And that's also another thing I think Steve has made a mistake on when he talks about that knowledge is a subset of truth, right? Oh, sorry, not the truth, sorry. Knowledge is a subset of belief, right? Therefore, you need to have belief in something to have knowledge of it. I think so he's got it wrong there too, but that is for another day, right? If you throw in some maths, what's maths? Smitty. All right. So weak theism is the fourth one, right? Subject S does not believe that God does not exist, or that subject S does not believe that at least one God does not exist, right? Right. It's backwards. So then it says if a theist believes God exists, it would be contradiction to all simultaneously believe that God does not exist. That is okay, we'll go for it. The contradictory belief of G would be the belief of negation of G. And as such, we can define the atheist contradictory belief as negation of G as atheism. So what he's saying, that contradictory belief of that belief that God exists would be the belief of that God does not exist, or the belief, and such as we can define the atheist contradictory belief of God does not exist as atheism. Why has he repeated himself here? Atheist contradictory belief of as, okay, atheism. What? This is wrong. The contradictory belief of G would be the belief of negation G. Okay, that God doesn't exist. And such as we can define that the atheist contradictory belief of that God does not believe as atheism. Okay, so he's saying that he's going to define it as, okay, sorry, my bad. Atheism, the belief that G is false. I don't know why he has turned as to something what exists and does not exist into true and false statements. He has switched it. I don't know why he's done that. You don't need to do that. I don't know why he's adding this true and false thing right over here. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. Right? So then he goes on. So he's saying that atheism is the second one on the screen, on the image, that the subject believes that God does not exist. That's what he's saying. And then he's saying weak atheism is, right, the non-belief of the proposition G, which is the second one? No, not the second one. The third one, that the subject does not believe that God exists. Right? So he's saying this is weak atheism, and what he's saying that strong atheism is that S believes that God does not exist. Believes God does not exist, does not believe that God exists, right? And then, as with the definition of theist, the belief of God does not exist implies a non-belief of God. That is not true. such that an atheist who believes God does not exist does not believe that God exists. Does not believe that God exists. He's just repeating himself. This is a repetition. This one is not true. The first line. You see why it's important to read symbols? Because then it starts like clicking in your brain. Right? So he's saying that with the definition of theist, the belief of that at least one God exists implies a non-belief of God exists. You're trying to catch up? Nice. That is not true. Then we go to agnostic, the non-belief of the non-belief of that at least one God exists, and the non-belief of that at least one God does not exist. I think so Steve did not realize when he went with, oh, at least one God exists, and then you go to the other side of at least one God does not exist, what it becomes. I think so his foremost mistake was that. Right? Because saying that at least one God does not exist, or believe that at least one God does not exist, can mean many things. That no God exists, or there are more than one God that exists. So he's totally got it wrong here. Yeah, belief should be the subset, but Steve goes the other way around, if I'm not wrong. Do you see what just happened here? He started with, at the start, right? He started with the G to represent the proposition that at least one God exists, right? And if you go with the negation of it, it says at least, not at least one God exists, or at least one God does not exist. What does that mean? If you think about it in language terms, it can mean that more than one God exists. So he just totally got it wrong from the start. He should not have used this thing that at least one God exists. He just tried to be over smart here, and he just slipped. Totally slipped. He just should have gone with the simpler terms as saying, we allow the G to represent the proposition that God exists. That's all he should have done. Do I need to say more? Steve, listen to people around you who criticize you. They know what the fuck they're talking about. Hopefully Intrigued agrees with me on this one, or they can correct me. Yeah, he wrote a paper. I'm not going to say what his personal, motivations were to write this paper, but I think so he got it wrong from the start. He should not have used the G as a proposition that at least one God exists, because if you go with the negation of it, I will just write it down so that my brain can fathom it, right? Because if I go with, hold on, G to represent that God exists, right? Hold on. Let me see. I need to, I'm gonna write it down because it makes sense to me, right? So yeah. So if I write it down, right? If I write it down, Sorry, this is like, I didn't realize that and it just popped up here. So G is the proposition at least one God exists, right? And the negation of G would be at least one God does not exist. So one particular God does not exist, so what about the other gods? So you can say that if it's negation of G, that at least one God does not exist. There are still other gods. Like, what's the point of this kind of proposition? I don't get it. It just confuses the reader. Tell me if I'm wrong. Why is it so warm? Why the fuck are you so warm? I'm getting worked up. This is stupid. Why would you make your paper so complex on purpose, unless you're trying to hide behind the language? Now I have problems. Just saying. Right? So once we have read all this, right? I'm not going to the, let me get this out of the way. Sorry. I'm not reading the next paragraph because I have to say something about this. I already got stuck at that one thing where we now have realized that this thing, at least one God exists, was not necessary at all. Right? So, according to what I've written in my notes, we know what the paper defined theism as, believe that God exists, defines strong atheism as, or just calls it atheism here, that believe that God does not exist, weak atheism as non-belief in God's existence, and then weak theism as non-belief that God does not exist. And then we'll read further what it defines agnosticism as, right? Sorry, if I go here, the agnosticism, it says the non-belief of G and the non-belief of negation of G, right? So agnosticism as having both non-beliefs together, not believing God exists and not believing God does not exist. Not believing God exists and not believing God doesn't. So I'll try to be a little fair here. I put the point in my notes, right? The setup is not the problem, right? It's the purpose of the argument. Setup is pretty clear, yeah. And once you grant those definitions, we can talk more coherently, right? About strong and weak positions. We already actually made sense that this position was not required at all. This is just adding more confusion, right? So that's why it's important to understand what symbols mean, what definitions are, and why we are using some definitions, right? So the important thing is that we need to keep a track of what kind of relation exists between all the positions, right? So let's make it clearer now. Strong theism is narrower than weak theism. Strong atheism is narrower than weak atheism. Agnosticism is the position where both positive beliefs are absent. Yeah? So, where the trouble is beginning now, in my opinion, is how the paper talks about these relations. It starts to speak as though moving from the strong case to the weak case is only a small semantic shift, when it's not. If in fact the shift from a narrow category to a broader one, that's what's happening, right? It's not a collapse. It's just an overlap, and it's not a, as I described earlier. Where is it? What is it called? Was it called the subalternations, right? The stronger position is true, the weaker position must also be true, but not the other way around. Right? So that's what it is. Suspended, not absent. What are you saying, Intrigued? Hi, Intrigued. How are you doing, Intrigued? Welcome, Intrigued. I'm glad you could join us, Intrigued. Are you catching up? Right? So the simplest way to put it as is, if I believe God does not exist, then yes, obviously I do not believe that God exists. So strong atheism implies weak atheism. Implies, right? The implication is fine, but the reverse doesn't follow. Right? Somebody can fail to believe that God exists without positively believing that God does not exist. Right? Agnostic is suspension of belief. I'm going by what Steve has put in here, Intrigued. So that's what we are doing. Suspended, not absent. You could say actually that is also another issue, right? Absent might be a wrong word to use here. We could use like suspended instead of absent. I will change my notes. I will change my notes. So again, strong theism implies weak theism, but the reverse doesn't follow. Weak theism does not imply strong theism, right? That doesn't follow at all. But it is an error in what he has put forth. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I get it. So we have found an important structure here already, right? Yeah. So and there's this also, then we go through strong theism sits inside weak theism, right? And strong atheism sits inside weak atheism. Agnosticism sits where the two weak categories overlap. Yeah, strong is a subset of weak. Yay! Intrigue knows what I'm talking about. You know, I had to read it like 5 times to get it in my head to click. I was like, 5 times I read it. What? No. Oh, okay. It was that torturous, yeah. So, right? So this is a picture of inclusion and overlap. That's not a collapse, right? When we were going in the beginning, collapse would mean categories themselves have stopped doing distinct work. That's not what's happening here. It's an overlap, meaning two broad categories may share some of the same cases. That's what happened. That's what it would be, right? It's not a collapse, it's an overlap, right? Okay, I hope I'm not making it more complicated. Please let me know. Please let me know if I really don't like, yeah. Chesh, this, I think that the stream will stay here because I'm gonna be just so slow about this. Right? There's also one thing that happened here. If I could find that. So there's a word here that was used, coextensional, which would mean covering exactly the same cases, same extension, same group. But that's not what the paper shows here, right? So if I go there and I will go for Control F and I go for the word coextension, yeah, it's in the next paragraph, right? So I want to, I put this as a flag here because I want to see my notes and see what I said here. So now in ordinary English, coextensional would mean covering exactly the same cases, same extension, same group. But that's not what the paper has shown. If theists are people who believe God exists and weak theists are people who do not believe God does not exist, those are not the same group. Exactly. Agnostics also count as people who do not believe God does not exist. So weak theism is larger than theism. Same problem with the atheist side. So coextensional is the wrong word here. The relation is not identity. It is one-way implication or subset inclusion. Right? It's not covering exactly the same cases. It's not coextensional. Right? Because over here in the next paragraph it says, for all rational beliefs as epistemic depositions towards a proposition, there is an epistemically implied coextensional non-belief such that if S believes that G, so that S believes that God exists, then S does not believe that God does not exist. It can be then inferred that the belief of theism implies a non-belief of weak theism, which we know is not true. That's not how it works. Right? We have already demonstrated that. And the belief of atheism implies non-belief or weak atheism. That again, that it's the other way around. I think so Steve got it wrong here. I think maybe he wanted to go the other way around. I think so he got confused and he switched the language. Venn diagram, please, with pointer to where you currently are. That's what I have on my paper right now for the video. Ah, dang, Venn diagram. I wish I thought about that. I'm sorry. Yeah. You can make a Venn diagram. I could make a Venn diagram. Hold on. Let me just see if I could. Let's see. If I bring up paint, let's bring up paint. Actually, no, I don't have to bring up paint. I'll just disconnect. What the hell? Am I live? Okay, why did it do that? Holy shit. Insert. Models? Am I looking? No, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for charts, pie. Nope. If I go with Venn. Okay, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna use paint. Hold on. Paint is the best thing to use. Hold on. That's what we're gonna try and use. Boop. Okay. Let's see. Can you see that? Can you see that? No, you can't see that. Hold on. Why can't you see paint? What the fuck? I'm back? Okay. RIP stream. I don't know what happened there. It just like decided. Yeah, that's a black box. I don't know why that it wouldn't pop up for some reason. Hold on, let me try again. Go away. Okay. No, go away. No, I don't have that. I'm sorry. Let me see if this works. Hold on. If I go with display capture, okay, automatic, nope, 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 go away, remove, yes, window capture, let's see. Huh? That doesn't work. Okay, whatever. Okay, I'll try and see if I can build up a... this is so frustrating. Let's see if this works. Hold on a minute. Okay, this might work. Okay. Huh, okay, this might work. Window capture. No. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for display capture. Okay. Huh? What the hell? No, I am distracted. Window capture. Okay, then we go. Nope, not this one. Okay. This. Okay, is this better? Look, guys, look. I got it. Right? So if you look at the simple Venn diagram here, something might exist in the overlapping, but that does not mean that the whole category is the same. Right? That's what we are trying to demonstrate. Does that make sense? Right? Or not? I don't know how visually helpful that was. I should have done a Venn diagram. I'm sorry. Okay, all right, moving on. So there's an inclusion and overlap. There's no collapse there. All right, that's what we just did. This is going to be a 4-hour stream today, guys. That's what's going to happen now. I painted a gradient on my Venn diagram. Nice. So, so again, co-extensional is the wrong word here. The relation is not identity. It is one-way implication or subset inclusion. That's what it is, right? Whereas co-extensional would mean covering exactly the same cases. The same extension, same group. That's not what it means. Co means same. Steve, English. Right? So, why this matters is because, as we see in the next paragraph, right, the later argument here leans very heavily on blurring the line between one, a broader set that includes multiple kind of cases, and two, one specific subcase within that broader set. So like blurring the lines, right? If I go back here, blurring the lines between this one and this one. That's why it's important. They are not all overlapping. Sorry. Right? So this one here is not, this whole thing is not overlapping here, nor here. right? They are not on top of each other, nor it's like coinciding with this one, nor it's coinciding with this one, but that's what seems to be happening in the paper later, right? So the basic definitions, they are usable. The legitimate implications are also fine, but paper already has start sliding from A implies B to A and B are basically the same thing. That's not how it works, right? And that's a logical mistake that Steve has done, I think. And again, implication is not identity, right? And a subset is not the same thing as the whole set. We'll need these 2 points later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight it in my notes, right? And what I could also do is, give me a sec. Let me see if we can do this. I'm going to do this, and then you're going to save it. I'm going to save it, and then I'm going to bring it up here, and then go image. Okay. Browse. I'm not looking here. Download. Where is my streaming? For streaming, for today, for this. Open. Okay. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. Boop. I'm gonna put it somewhere. Oops. Somewhere down here. What? Somewhere down here, right? Implication is not identity. A subset is not the same thing as the whole set, right? Is it good here? I'll take it out of the way and then I'll bring it up when it needs to be, right? So repeating everything again. Theism believes God exists. Strong atheism believes God does not exist. Weak theism does not believe God exists. Weak atheism does not believe God exists. Weak theism does not believe God does not exist. Agnosticism, both non-beliefs. Weak you can say, right? And again, we are noticing that the weak categories, they are broader. And that's the whole thing in this paper that I think, so that's wrong. So going to the next set. For all the rational beliefs as epistemic depositions towards a proposition, there's an epistemically implied coextensional non-belief such that S believes that G or at least one God exists. Then subject does not believe that at least one God does not exist. It can be then inferred that the belief of that God exists theism implies a non-belief of that God does not exist, which is weak theism. We have already said that's not how it works. And the belief of the God does not exist, atheism. That implies a non-belief of God exists, weak atheism. It can be further implied as a condition of rationality that the belief of God, at least one God exists, and the belief of at least one God does not exist are epistemically mutually exclusive as to hold both true at the same time would be irrational. Given by the principle of bivalence, it is either the case that God exists or it is not the case that God exists. We can therefore say that beliefs of theism and atheism are contradictories in that if it is the case that God exists, then the theist belief is true and that atheist belief is false. And if it is not the case that God exists, then the theist belief is false and the atheist belief is true. Logically, since God must either exist or not exist, then it must be the case that either the theist belief must be true or the atheist belief must be true, as both cannot be true, nor both can be false. While positions of theism and atheism are contraries in that S can be theist and atheist or not, or neither. So what Steve has done here is he has brought in another thing in here, which I think so is not related at all. It's whether God exists or not exists. That does, like, someone's belief. Again, this whole thing, whether who's a theist, who's an atheist, who's a strong atheist, weak atheist, it does not depend on whether God exists or not, because these are all belief positions, right? And whether someone's belief is true or false doesn't matter either. You see what's going on here? Nice, you caught up. Why does it matter whether God exists or not exists? And why does it matter whether someone's belief is false or true? It shouldn't matter when you're trying to define what is a strong atheist or a weak atheist, or who's a theist, who's not a theist. That is entirely something separate. And he's conflated those two things here. Am I making sense? Intrigued, where are you? Am I making sense? Am I making sense? Intrigued. Intrigued, help me. Am I making sense? Like, whether someone is a strong theist or a weak atheist, strong atheist, weak atheist, it's all about based on their belief. It's not based on whether a God or a deity exists or not, or whether it's true or false. I don't know why he decided to include this here. I don't get it at all. At all. Am I making sense? Or not? That's why I wanted to go through this paper. It's like, what the frick? Why are you bringing this in? We are talking about definitions, not whether a position is true or false. I thought, because what's the topic of the paper? Our presumption of atheism by the way of a Semitic scale of opposition leads to a semantic collapse. This is about beliefs. Theism, atheism, this is all about beliefs. It's not about whether facts. Am I wrong? Where is my live chat? Help me figure it out, guys. Guys, where are you guys? Oh God, this is so stupid. I guess. Oops, sorry. I don't want guesses, man. I want. Nah, I think so. It has no relevance here, in my opinion. In my educated opinion, as someone who has a master's in engineering, I would. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. He's talking about for all rational beliefs and as epistemic dispositions towards a proposition. What does he mean by rational beliefs? Yeah, that's fine. I'm joking. I'm joking, guys. Don't take it too seriously, Athens. It's fine. But seriously, intrigued. What the fuck? Where are you? I'm joking. Dave Rowlands on this issue? Probably. But they're not here right now, are they? So yeah. For all rational beliefs as epistemic dispositions towards a proposition. Like... You posted it on community page. You did? You posted it on community page? Yay. Let me have a look. Thank you. I appreciate it. That's what we are here for, right? To try and figure out what the fuck. Dude, what the fuck? Let's see. Community page. Post. Yeah, they were here for a minute and then they're not here. So, community. For money. That is so cute. I love it. I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna use it. Hold on. This needs to be shown. Hold on. Come on. Get in there. Look at this. This is such a cute diagram. Oh my god. Look, guys. Agnostic, atheist, theist. What is outside here? Existence of God. Not the same. I think this is a pretty good diagram. I love it. Thanks. I think he means logical beliefs. Yeah, logic. I don't know. Rational is kind of different than logical in my opinion. Then he should have used logical beliefs because that's what he's trying to do here. He's using logical statements here. Then that's what he should have said here. Like, be consistent in your language. I would say that. So that, you know, people can understand what you're saying. People who review papers don't like inconsistent language, let me just say. They do not like inconsistent language. So yeah. Okay. So he uses a lot of words here, right? Coextensional. Then he's using contradictories, right? Then he uses contraries, right? I will explain what all these positions mean. They are in my notes, right? So don't worry. I'll talk about them. If I go and I look for that, sorry, you're not here. Where are you? Okay, you're not here. You're not in these notes. What the hell? I don't know if it was published. It's on a website. Hold on, let me see. It's here if I'm not wrong. Hold on. It's on academia.edu. It's here. No, I don't want to learn more. Go away. That's where it is. It's on academia.edu. That's what. I'll put it in the live chat. There we go. That's where it is. I don't know if it's a legit website to publish papers or no. I don't know. So, yeah. There are 10 pages. We've done only 2 pages, guys. No worries, no worries. uh, so, there were 2 sets of notes, weren't there? That one, that one? Yep, there we go. Beautiful. I had 2 sets of notes, guys. um, all right, all right. I say because we have been live for an hour. How about we take a break? Right? We should take a break. And then we'll start with this one here, which looks a little overwhelming. It's not that overwhelming, trust me. It's not, right? Yeah, let's take a break and then we'll be back, right? How about, yeah. Where's my be right back thingy? Oh yeah, there it is. But it's not popping up. Why aren't you popping up? Oh, there it is. All right, be right back. Okay, before I quickly come back, I'll make a correction. The fact that if G is allowed to represent the proposition that at least one God exists, then the negation of G would be that it's not the case that at least one God exists, yeah? So it's like no God exists. I got that wrong, sorry. So yeah, that's fine, but I think so it's too wordy. Didn't need to do that at all. I still stand by that. I'll be back. Just give me a sec, guys. How's everybody feeling so far about this? This is my first attempt to actually do a paper. Am I muted? I'm not muted. Don't say that. Oh. I think that he got lost in the Venn diagram, I think personally. No, it's not a paper for the layperson, Landon, no. But if you want to reach out to more people with your arguments, as a philosopher, you would want to make it a paper for the layperson, right? Just saying. What? Am I not visible? What the fuck? Don't do that. You can hear me? Yeah, I know. Am I not on the camera? What the hell? Guys, stop! Stop! What are you doing? You naughty boys and girls. Stop confusing me. Oh my god. Ah! Chesh will have to edit all this out. So it's your fault. Alright? Okay, cool. Yeah, okay, see ya, Ian. Thanks for coming by. No worries. All right, so now let's go with this, right? So over here, the next page is, it starts with the definition for, right? And it's talk about contradictories. Now, it sounds very technical. It's not that technical, right? So two positions are contradictory if they both cannot be true and cannot both be false, right? So that's what contradictories are. So over here, what it says is, right, in the contradictories, phi and psi, right, cannot both be true and cannot both be false. That's all it's saying, simply. Right? If we are using a formal system, if O represents some logical model with model theoretic semantics to establish semantically valid relationships for square of opposition, simply based, if O is a model, you know, where it's trying to establish some sort of relationship between some positions, right? Then contradictories in that model would be where two claims that are exact opposites, right? And what the square of opposition here means, that it's that diagram here, this one. That's what it is, right? That's what it's talking about. So this formula is phi and psi cannot both be true and phi and psi cannot both be false. That's what it's saying simply, right? So subject must hold to either that subject believes God exists or that subject does not believe God exists by principle of bivalence, in that it is the case that S believes God exists is true, or it is not the case that S believes God exists is true, or logically expressed as BSG and BSG, right? Meaning that it is always true that S either believes in God or does not believe in God. However, cannot rationally believe both that God exists and God does not exist at the same time, right? So that's what it is. That's what contradictory is. Both cannot be true, both cannot be false. That's what it is. So what Steve is trying to say here is, right, that the subject either believes that God exists or does not believe that God exists. And then also says that a rational subject cannot believe that both that God exists and God does not exist. So he's trying to treat theism and atheism as they behave like an either or pair, right? Which is not. That's where there's this wrong like positioning of things opposite each other, right? He's given a standard definition of contradictories to us, right? That two positions cannot both be true and cannot both be false. So far, that's fine, right? But then he slides from the proposition itself to a person's belief about the proposition. That's not how it works, right? That part is about reality. Again, beliefs, how can you test the model of beliefs based on the reality, whether God exists or not exists, or whether something's true or false? Doesn't relate to it at all. If the topic were to perfectly match the symbolic logic, that you could with confidence defend the argument, but that is a huge if, as you are describing, Manya. Manya! Shouting from the rooftop. By the way, I've repeatedly pointed out to Steve that one can construct axioms without definitions. However, it is usually not done because such axioms lead to unusual statements that, while they follow, are often not useful. Exactly. Yes, you're right. You're exactly right. What's the point of having all this? What's the end point? This paper is just sitting in a corner. Has it added anything to any conversation? What I have discovered is that it doesn't matter what the belief system, what theism, atheism definitions are. They are not based on reality or based on knowledge, because that's all a belief system, right? Or whether someone's belief is true or false. F minus minus. I would give it a E plus just to give Steve a chance to improve on it. Listen, I have been there where my paper has been so bad, but I wasn't failed because I was given an opportunity to improve on it. So I will always give that to someone else. E plus, or E plus or D, so that they have opportunity to improve on it. When you start something with 1 + 1 3, all math follows is flawed. So them starting by believing that God is real, all things that follow are false because flawed, like flat earth. So low energy width, this is not about whether a belief is true or not. This is about a system that is being used to establish what is theism, what is atheism, what is weak atheism, what is strong, atheism, and all that stuff. It's not about whether, and that's what I'm trying to separate here. And that's what I think so Steve has mixed here, that a belief system, that a system of belief, like definitions in logical form, even in mathematical form, right? They are definitions. They are descriptive, not prescriptive, right? They're descriptive. So whether what is in reality or not in reality may affect it or not. But when there's something like does God exist or not exist, right? In reality, doesn't matter. The definitions are definitions. They're descriptive, right? Yeah, they're descriptive, not prescriptive. They're describing something. They're describing a situation or a model. They're not talking about the reality. Steve is trying to barge in reality in and smash it with these definitions. That's not how it works. Right? Oh, E isn't it great in America? Okay. All right. Okay. No worries. In my defense, I didn't get an F. In my defense, my professor was like, I expect better from you. You go back and do it again. I'm like, okay, all right. Yeah. So that's what I'm doing. Purely from mathematical and logical standpoint of view, I'm trying to examine Steve's paper and Steve's model here. That's what I'm trying to do here. Important disclaimer, I'm given credit for offering suggestions in the acknowledgement section. I did make some mathematical observations that seem to have incorporated into later versions. There's a later version? This is not the later version? Oh, please tell me no. Come on. Presupposes, or however you spell that. Has he? Hold on, let me just go and scroll down and see if there's anything here. Lewis, Graham. Oh yeah, Landon Kirtnall. Yeah. This is the Yeah. This is the latest one. Okay. Got it. All right, coming back. Let's go. So see how nicely we have just explained this complex looking thing. Right? It's not that complex. It's spooky and scary. It's not that spooky and scary. Sorry, I'm in Canada. There was a rumor that I commented on. Oh, okay. Yeah. So going back, so the real contradictory of, a subject believes God exists is not subject believes God does not exist. The real contradictory is subject does not believe God exists, right? If I go back here, it will be this one. So for this one, it will be this one. These are contradictories, the first one and the third one, right? And likewise, the contradictory of subject believes God does not exist, this one, is subject does not believe God does not exist, this one. 1 and 3, 2 and 4, these are the contradictories, right? So what that means is that strong atheism and theism are not contradictories here. They are contraries, right? There's a difference between contradictories and contraries. They cannot both be true, but they can both be false together. That's what being a contrary is. And that's what we will see when we come here in definition 5 of the paper, right? If I go and scroll here, the contraries, right? So that's where I think so he got it a little twisted. Works are squishy, which is why mathematics prefers symbolics. While that makes it harder for someone on the outside to understand, it often avoids problematic nature of language. I will disagree on you with that, Landon. How about that? I'll disagree with you on that. Just saying. I was just... What? Steve's paper? ChatGPT? I don't know. Grammarly, maybe? I don't know if ChatGPT existed 4 years ago. Okay. All right. We're fine. So, yeah. So when, like, the paper is trying to use this, like, Zord table, like the truth table here, right? The Boolean table for theism and atheism, that is the wrong truth pattern. Zor rules out both being false, but the agnosticism is exactly the case where both beliefs are absent or not absent, suspended. So the paper has mixed up the contradictory propositions with contrary belief states. Propositions and beliefs. Confused. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think so ChatGPT was there when Steve wrote it. So that's what he has done here. He has confused the propositions, contradictory propositions to contrary belief states, which is sad. Very sad. And once you get a hang of this language, this language here, it becomes very easy to understand. And that's what I wanted to help people understand. I don't want people to get intimidated by the symbolism here and the logical symbolism here. I want people to understand what is actually going on. So you can go back to Steve and say, no, Steve, this is not right. Right? It's put wrong things opposite each other. Right? Because, as I've said, he's trying to slide from proposition itself to a person's belief about the proposition. Right? Either God exists or does not exist. That's a proposition. That part is about reality. It does not follow that every person either believes God exists or believes God does not exist. Because a person, like Intrigue said, can suspend their judgment, and that's what one agnostic does. Right? So two things: propositions, God exists or does not exist, and then belief, whether you believe God exists or don't believe God exists. As I had said, he has clashed reality and belief system together, or propositions with beliefs. That's what he has done. So we don't need to worry about this Zor thing over here at all. Right? So yeah, that's what the paper has done. It's confused the proposition itself with the person's belief about the proposition. Yeah, I believe he wrote it. I do believe he wrote it. I will give him that. I'm not going to take that away from him. Give him that. He is not going to improve if you say he didn't write it. Oh God, Sable Eagle has got bars today. Nice. So, yeah. Whew. So that's done. That's done. So we have also established that the contradictory of believing P is not believing P, right? It is not believing not P or the proposition, if we go with P with the proposition. And that's the distinction that like keeps the agnosticism from disappearing, right? AR, is that the one that I shared in the live chat, Landon? Is that the same one? Or is it? I got it from here. Oh God, why is it not? Okay, it's not doing that for me. Go away. Go away. Go away. If I bring it here. I got it from here. Same one? Here we go. Okay. All right. Okay, now we go to the next one. We are now going to talk about definition 5, contraries, right? And we just found out what contraries are, right? If I go back to my notes up, oops, I lost it. Yeah. So we said that the paper is mixing contradictory and contrary belief states, right? Contradictory propositions with contrary belief states, right? And so contraries over here for phi and psi, you know, if O is a model, right? what it's trying to say here is, where's my notes? Where are my notes? Notes. Here we go. Right? So contraries are when two positions, they cannot be true, but they can both be false. That's what a contrary, two positions can be contraries, right? So believing God exists and believing God does not exist are contrary positions, right? A rational person can't hold both of them together. You can't believe that God exists and then God does not exist at the same time, right? Or can't hold the same propositions at the same time. But you can suspend either or can hold neither. And that's where, like we said, agnosticism comes in the contraries, right? And if we look at this, the truth table here, yeah, I think so. If is misspelled there. I think so it is. I'm not that bothered. It's okay. Typos happen. But I think so it's in every sentence. It's the same thing. It's fine. It's okay. So over here, what Steve is trying to say is that someone believing that God exists and someone believing God does not exist are contraries and can be represented by a Boolean NAND function, not AND. That's what it means, right? So the first one is, if both are true, then the combination is not allowed, right? If the first one is true, the second is false, it's allowed. If the first one is false, the second one is true, it's allowed. If both are false, then allowed. If either one of them is false, it's still true. But if both of them are true, that's false. So it's a not, he's trying to use the NAND logic table here. I don't know why you don't have to use it. In my opinion, there's no need of it. Right? That's my opinion. Why are you so small? What did I do here? Huh? Nani? Go big. Thank you. So here what the paper is trying to say is that theism and strong atheism are contraries. In plain English, that they are two competing strong answers. You can't consistently hold both at once, but you can hold neither. You can suspend them. Right? If and only if. Yeah, sorry, my bad. If and only if. Sorry, Landon, my bad. It's been a while. That's how you know that it's been a while since I've been to university. Yeah, read it as if and only if. Yes, you're right, Landon. Thanks. Thanks for the correction. So what it's trying to say here is the theism and strong atheism are contraries. In plain English, that means that they are two competing strong answers. You can't consistently hold both at once, but you can hold neither, or you can suspend them at the same time. And this table is just a formal way of saying not both. Simple as that. That's the first line is what you need to worry about. And the last one, in my opinion. Right? If both are marked true, then the result is false, because both cannot be true at the same time. But if both are false, you suspend them, then it's allowed. Thank you. Appreciate it. So the point here is simple. You can't rationally believe both. That's what this definition is. Then the definition 6 is subcontrary. So now it's moving from contrary to subcontrary. It's moving to the two lower positions. So subcontraries and subalternations, right? We're trying to see if it's if the logical reason that they're trying to use, they're using, if it holds up to the logical examination. I don't think so. It does. Yeah. I don't think so. It does. Welcome, by the way. Thank you. Right. So it's moving down to subcontraries over here, as it shows, and it's moving to lower positions in the square, the weak ones, right? These are called subcontraries. I'm repeating myself. That means that two weak non-belief positions can both be true together, but they cannot be false together, right? So it's the opposite. You can say it's sort of if you go back to the truth table, this one, if both are true, right? But they cannot be false together. Yeah. So it's a subcontrary. So what it's saying here is, in the subcontrary, what it's trying to say, in this case, two weak positions are: the subject does not believe that God exists, and the subject does not believe that the God does not exist, right? Those are the two. And that's what Steve is saying. These are the two subcontraries that can be presented by an OR function. If both are true, then true. If one of them is true, and true. If any one of them is true, then it's true. If both of them are false, then false, right? So they both cannot be false together, right? You're older than me? Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm old. My dentures are gonna fall out. So, again, I'll repeat it. The two weak positions are not believing that God exists and not believing God does not exist. A person can have both of them, right? They can believe that they don't have to believe that God exists, and then they don't have to believe God does not exist, right? So you can use an OR table for that. In the OR table, the logical thing, if any one of the positions are true, then it's true, right? If both are false, then false. It's simple. So the lower part of the square is where overlap is allowed, right? In the subcontrary. And that is in that overlap where the agnosticism exists or sits, right? Then we go to definition 7, subalternations, right? So subalternation is a one-way implication. It's a one-way street, you can say, right? Stronger position automatically brings a weaker one with it. This tags along with it. You're coming with me. You can't go around, right? So if someone believes God exists, then they also count as someone who does not believe God does not exist, right? And if someone believes God does not exist, then they also count as someone who does not believe God exists. The table over here, right? It's just that's what it's saying. If both are true, then true. If one of them is false, false. If the first one is true and the second one is false, then it's false. If the first one is false and any one of them is this one is a bit okay. Hold on. So yeah, so if the first one is true, then the second is true, the implication works. If the first one is true and the second one is false, false, the implication fails. If the first one is false, then this implication is still counted as true. If the first one is false, it is still counted as true in formal logic, right? But the reverse is not true, right? If someone believes God exists, that they also count as someone who does not believe God does not exist. But it's not the other way around. As someone who does not believe God does not exist does not mean that they will believe God exists. That is not true, right? So that's what it's talking about. Again, and if someone believes God does not exist, that then they can also count as someone who does not believe God exists, but it's not the other way around. Someone who does not believe God exists is not going to be someone who believes God does not exist, right? It doesn't go backwards. It just goes forwards, right? So a person can fail to believe God exists without positively believing God does not exist, right? This is a more elaborate square of opposition, machinery. That's what it's happening. Contrary, subcontraries, subalternation, and the diagram itself. And I'm going to be fair here. It's fair where it's fair, yeah? The square properly understood is not it's not like the focus of my critique, right? Or the square actually is helping my critique over here. Because the square is itself encoding difference, hierarchy, and overlap. It's not collapsing, right? That's not what it's doing. Theism is on one side, atheism on the other. The lower row is the weak pair, weak atheism, weak theism, right? And agnosticism is treated as a conjunction of the two lower positions. So if I go here, there it is, right? Theism on one side, atheism on other, and then you have weak theism and then weak atheism, right? So this is what it is. And the agnosticism is treated, in the conjunction of the lower positions. This one. Can you see it? No, you can't see it. Fuck my life, sorry. Here it is. This is the square that we were talking about. So it's talking about difference in hierarchy and overlap. It's not talking about collapse anywhere. It's not collapsing on itself, right? Hi Wendy, how are you? Matt Dillahunty also gets too wordy. He also gets caught up too much in the words. Because his thing is, God does not exist, God does not exist. I think so both Steve and Matt Dillahunty got mixed up with reality and beliefs and the structure of beliefs or the model. I think so Steve was trying to go to the logical side and the mathematical side of it too much. Matt Dillahunty, the reality side of too much. I think so that's where they both just lost each other and didn't want to understand each other, in my opinion. I could be wrong. They can tell us better, I think. So the downward arrows over here are one-way implication, which are subalterations, right? It's implication, not identity. So if theism implies weak theism, that means every theist satisfies the weak theist condition. That does not mean that every weak theist is a theist. And I think so that's where Steve got it wrong. A downward arrow is not an equal to sign. Or it's not a inclusion of a Venn diagram. Overlapping, like Yeah. So the paper itself is drawing a picture in which the lower terms are broader than the upper terms. These terms are very specific. These are the broader terms. Right? Like the top theism and atheism, they are specific ones. The bottom ones, weak theism, weak atheism, agnosticism, these are the broader ones. These are broader. Yeah. So there's also like a technical sloppiness over here in the paper, yeah? The definitions of contrary, subcontrary are formalized, and subalternation is defined in terms of one-way implication, right? But at points, the prose blurs which pair is standing in which relation. There's a looseness between formal labels and the informal talk. That's what I discovered a lot. It's not fatal to the argument, but it's like it contributes to the sense that a formal model or presentation is being used for weight more than clarity. Right? PNCBIO, I don't know that either side could understand the other, no matter how much effort is put in. I can't feel the way a believer feels no matter how hard I try. It's always going to seem like nonsense. Yeah. I'm not gonna listen to a straw man. Matt. Please understand that Steve wrote the paper well before there may have had an injury, not a doctor, so I cannot say Steve was injured. That's not Matt's argument. What the fuck? Did I say something wrong, Jessica? Let me know if I said something wrong. Did I misrepresent Matt's position somehow? If I got it wrong, I will correct it. I didn't mean to do that. I did say that they can tell us better. Yeah. Informal language in a mathematical paper is all too often a problem. Yeah. Either you go all the way mathematical, right? Or then you go informal. If you have to mix it, then you have to be careful about it. In my opinion, if I wrote such a paper, I would want more people to understand it. So it would be less mathematical for me. It would be formal, but it would be less mathematical for me. You know what I mean? So yeah, I hope I made myself clear. Jessica, come back. I didn't want to misrepresent Matt. I didn't mean to. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. Please correct me. It's fine. Come back. Okay, so and also like the truth tables, as I said, they are not necessary. We have already built the relations in advance, so I don't know why the truth tables were put in there. I don't see the I don't know. I didn't see the reason for it. But yeah, this is not my paper, so Steve must have had something in mind if he put it in there. Yeah. So if I'm looking at my notes, theism implies weak theism, strong atheism implies weak atheism. Agnosticism satisfies both weak conditions. Those are the real takeaways, yeah. And none of these points amount to collapse, right? And if we go right to the start, collapse would mean the categories themselves have stopped doing distinct work. The categories are doing a lot of distinct work here. So they're not collapsing, right? So So yeah, so this whole the square thing is, you can say it's kind of a map. It shows which positions exclude each other, which positions imply broader ones, right? And where agnosticism sits. But even if a map overlaps, it's not a proof that places on the map are identical, right? So it's showing inclusion and overlap, not identity and collapse. That's what it is. So the next one is, if I'm not wrong, we are going to start from here, right? The canonical square of opposition relations. The paper, The Presumption of Atheism, at number 5. So this is the one here. Anthony Flew, Presumption of Atheism, right? Canadian Journal of Philosophy. Where did it go? Yeah. Has led to a substantial push by a number of atheists, mostly via social media. Now, for this one, I would have loved to see a citation. Where have you seen it? Which atheists? I would love to have, who attempt to move away from the more normative understanding in academic literature of the term atheism, definition 2. Oxford Dictionary of Atheism states that, if you look at the bottom, that's where the definition is. Oxford Dictionary of Atheism states that the atheism as the belief that there is no God is arguably the most popular current usage. That's what the dictionary says, right? So I don't know where he got this from. He has led to a substantial push by a number of atheists, mostly via social media, who attempt to move away from the more normative understanding in academic literature of term atheism to mean the simple non-acceptance of theism. Flew's paper claims that the common usage of atheist in English was someone who asserts that there is no such thing as God, but wanted to term atheism to not have any positive epistemic status or assertoric force. So here Steve is saying that the motivations behind the shift from the normative understanding of atheism as having a positive epistemic status to one of a weak case conditions I won't explore here. So he doesn't explore this. Okay. Whereas nowadays, the usual meaning of atheist in English is someone who asserts that there is no such thing as God. I want the word to be understood not positively but negatively. Quote. He's quoting someone. Okay. He's quoting Flew over here. I recall Steve and Matt had an argument where the use of the truth table mattered. Matt did what he usually does when someone disagrees with him and cut off Steve. Steve is reasserting the logic as a way to boost his argument with Matt. Okay. I see. So you're saying that he's trying... But the thing is that if the logic is wrong, I don't know how a truth table will help, right? But I guess he doesn't think the logic is wrong, so he thinks it's boosting his argument, right? And reasserting it. Okay. I can see where he's coming from, but as someone who's gone through it, I would say there's no relation here, so why are you using it? I get it what you mean. I get it. Yeah. To assert that the proposition in true has an associated sincere propositional disposition of belief that what subject asserts to be true, subject believes to be true. An assertion that P is sincere, proposition is sincere if and only if asserter believes that proposition. Assuming sincerity, then if subject asserts proposition, then subject believes proposition. So in reference to the usual meaning of someone who asserts that there is no such thing as God, subject believes that there is no such thing as God. By attempting to define atheism in the weak condition, it removes the assertion that God does not exist
and no longer bases atheism on the assertion of the ontological status of God not existing, but being wholly constitutive of the psychological state of the subject as mere passive unbelief rather than the active disbelief. This Humpty Dumptyism should be rejected from semantic grounds. Humpty Dumptyism? Holy moly. Lewis Carroll through the looking glass. Oh my god. Dude. No. That's no. That's not how it goes. Come on. You cheeky bugger. Oh god. So what he's trying to do is he's trying to turn from formal relations to more openly semantic complaint. That's what he's trying to do here, yeah? What he's saying is that Flu's presumption of atheism encouraged people to move away from the supposedly more normative academic meaning of atheism as a belief that God does not exist, towards weaker meaning of mere non-acceptance of theism, right? He's quoting Flu's lines that he wants the word understood not positively but negatively. And then says that broadening the term in this way removes the positive epistemic status of atheism and reduces it to passive psychological condition of unbelief. The paper even calls the move Humpty Dumptyism. No, I get it, Landon. I know you're not trying to defend Steve. You're trying to explain what he was trying to achieve here. I get it. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I understand. You're trying to offer some perspective. I get it. No, I get it. I'm in my academic mode right now, so I'm not taking anything personally over here, or saying, that, you can't see it from Steve's point of view. No, that's fine. I understand what you're trying to say. I get it. Right? So, hello, Orange. How you doing? So, again, there's a legitimate complaint there, right? I'm trying to be fair because, this is an academic paper. You don't want to be biased in these situations. So the legitimate complaint that I think so that what the actual complaint is that the term historically and or commonly carries a stronger sense, and then people begin using it in a broader, weaker sense. And that makes people talk past each other. And I think so that's what Steve was trying to convey to Matt. Because of this, we are talking past each other. Right? Which is true. Which is fine. It's not irrational at all. I'll give it to him. Right? That terminological drift, or the drift in terminology or stipulation, can create confusion. That's a valid complaint. I get it, right? But even if we grant Steve that, or the author over here, that the broader use of atheism is awkward or rhetorically motivated or less clear, that's not proving any contradiction, right? And it's not proving a collapse by itself. And it's also not it's not going to by itself prove that the position Flu wanted to defend is false. Right? So, yeah. Also, that this principle of sincerity that the paper is citing, that's also not enough to do what the author wants to do here, right? The paper is saying, in effect, that if someone sincerely asserts that no God exists, then they believe that no God exists. Okay, that is true enough under ordinary conditions. But what does not follow from it is that the broader philosophical label may not also exist. The sincerity point is only telling you about the asserters. It does not tell you about that a broader umbrella category is illegitimate or legitimate. Illegitimate in this case, right? Yeah, we know. Yeah, Steve, like they both have a history of talking past each other. So, in other words, proving that every sincere strong atheist has the strong atheist belief does not prove that only strong atheists can fall under a broader non-theist or weak atheist label. Right? So there's a pattern over here, if I'm not wrong. The paper is establishing one thing and then it's reaching for a stronger conclusion. That's what it's trying to do. When it's not easily implied that way. So what it's establishing is a semantic preference, right? Someone is saying, I prefer stronger assertive use of the word atheism, but what they want to conclude is more like the broader use is logically defective and should be rejected. Which is like, no. So the conclusion does not follow from a mere preference for a stronger lexical norm. That's not how it does. Preference does not make the conclusion automatically follow. So there can be two debates that can happen here, right? Which label is more tacit or clearest? Which label is historically standard? Which label is rhetorically better? And then the other debate can be, does the broader labeling scheme generate a contradiction or collapse? Two different things. And I think so Steve and Matt were going at each other about, does the broader labeling scheme generate a contradiction or collapse? And that's what Steve is trying to prove here, that a broader labeling scheme generates a collapse, when we have seen here that it's not so. Collapse will be when the boundaries, when the terms stop being distinct. They don't do any distinctive work. Collapse would mean categories themselves have stopped doing distinct work. Overlap means two broad categories may share some of the same cases. Ambiguity means a word has more than one possible sense. Yeah, that's fine. You can operate with the loose, definition of atheism. What Steve is trying to say is that there's a semantic collapse that's happening there because of that. And because of that, there's some, confusion. Right? So I think so Steve was trying to have a second debate with Matt. Does the broader labeling scheme generate a contradiction or collapse? According to Steve, it generated a collapse. According to Matt, I think he meant it didn't matter. Or it mattered to Matt in the way that he was like, it doesn't matter. I think so. That's what Matt was like. Ooh, spicy noodles, right. Icarus from the live chat. Negative atheism are denoted by the same term of atheism. It can then be logically demonstrated by way of a semiotic square of opposition that it will effectively result in the possibility of someone concurrently being semantically an atheist, theist, and agnostic. Okay, so someone came back with spicy noodles and someone is going to make spicy noodles. Nice. Nice. So yeah, this section is this canonical square of opposition relationship. This section is advancing the first kind of complaint, but the paper later talks as though it has won the second debate. Starts with the first one, and then pretends it's won the second one. Right? And it matters because terminology disputes are often solved very simply. You qualify the term. You say strong atheism and weak atheism. You say strong theism and weak theism. That is the ordinary fix for ambiguity. Right? You do not need a dramatic story about semantic collapse to explain why qualifications help. So the paper has a plausible concern about semantic clarity. I give it that. But it inflates that concern into something much stronger than it has earned. A naming dispute is not a knockout argument. Even if the paper wins the dictionary fight, it still wouldn't automatically win the logic fight. Right? So if we go to the next one, right? Weak conditions lead to semantic collapse. The reason why I'm just jumping through all of this, why I'm not reading, because we have already gone through all of this. We have done that. We have done that homework, right? And I don't want to make it overwhelming. I'm keeping it simple. Right? We have done that part. This diagram explains everything. We have talked about it. So we don't need these. We don't need to talk about these things. We don't. Right? So weak case conditions lead to semantic collapse. So this is the thing that Steve I think so he wanted to talk to Matt about, or was trying to convey to Matt, and Matt was like, doesn't matter. For him, for the purpose of him, he was happy with the broader sense. Because it helped him bring more people under the umbrella of atheism. I think so that was always Matt's point, if I'm not wrong. Right? I think so what Matt missed there was, okay, they're still atheists, that's fine, but you cannot bring someone on your side by forcing them. You are an atheist, dude. Why are you thinking about this, and this? Right? That's not how you get people on your side. You can't force them. If they have doubts, you talk to them and then you convince them. If you don't want to convince them, that's an entirely different thing, right? So it was okay, alrighty. Landon from the live chat, if someone asked me, are you an atheist or an agnostic, I would have to reply, I don't know, tell me what you mean by those labels and I'll try to give you an answer if that is possible. Yeah, you qualify them, right? What do you mean by atheism? What do you mean by theism? Blah, 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 blah. Let's talk about this, right? So according to what you think, I think you're this. According to, what I think, blah, 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 So that's all it is. It's like, stop, like, I'm right is not gonna work that way. Landon from the live chat, the terms have become so murky in common usage that one has a hard time answering well. Yeah. Okay. The weak case conditions lead to semantic collapse. Right? Oh, we got to page 7 quickly. Yeah, I think so. It's going to be a 3 hours. It's what? How many hours we have been live? Two, more than 2 hours now. Yeah, it's going to be a 3 hour stream minimum. I think. Yeah, I'm not going to be surprised if it goes to 3.5 hours. Chesh, all for you. Okay, so this is what the author is saying, right? Now let us consider how defining subalternation of subject believes God does not exist, being subject does not believe God exists, or weak atheism as atheism. It's doubtful Flu's paper would have argued that a person who holds the belief God does not exist surely would not have been an atheist. It's doubtful Flu's paper would have argued that a person. So now he's talking about Flu's motivations. Why? There was no need for that. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Landon, tell me, would you do that? I wouldn't do that. No, I wouldn't do that. Okay. So he goes on. So it seems reasonable to assume the author's intent was to have more semantic labeling of both subject believes God does not exist and its subalternation of subject does not believe God exists, to be both construed as a position of atheism. Oh dear. Who's Flu? He's the person, this person here. Where is it? Flu, where are you? Flu, what the fuck? Where did you go, Flu? He's the person, Flu says presumption of atheism is accepted, the thought of negative case. So Flu is the one that Steve is trying to build his paper on, right? Oh, Landon, that's very kind of you. So, I think so. Flu was trying to go for a broader definition of atheism. Flu is a famous atheist philosophy of religion guy. Okay. So it seems reasonable to assume that author's intent was to have a more semantic labeling of this and this, subalteration, to be both construed as the position of atheism. This is a lot of assumption here. I don't like assumptions, especially in a paper. Give me quotations. I will take quotations. Paraphrase, I'll take that. But motivations, that's a whole different thing. That's a whole different thing for me. I don't know, Landon, you tell me. So here, assume now that S holds, subject holds to, as subject does not believe God exists, but fails to hold to subject believes God does not exist. This is allowed the or truth function for subcontraries. We can see only disallowment is S failing to hold to neither subject does not believe God exists, nor subject does not believe God does not exist, given ZOR truth function. S is prohibited from holding S does not believe God exists and S believes God exists at the same time. And S or subject by our initial assumption does not hold to S believes God does not exist, then S must hold to subject does not believe God exists and subject does not believe God does not exist. That is the agnostic, right? Landon from the live chat. In case Steve is watching this chat, hi Steve, I hope you don't mind my attempt to give my opinion about the context around your paper. Consider her comments and publish a follow-up paper. Nice one. So we can additionally argue without loss of generality that if we accept the request in 5 to label the subalternations of atheism as also theism, which we know is not right, then subject believes God does not exist implies subject does not believe God exists. Weak atheism as atheism. No, that's not true. We already established that. So I'm not going to read all of it because it's repeating what we have already established, right? So, but what I will say is that this is the heart of the paper, right? That's what he's saying. Weak case conditions lead to semantic collapse, right? This is where the author thinks that decisive result appears, and this is also where the key mistake is easiest to expose, in my opinion. I'll state this whole thing as charitably as I can. I'll do that because this is a paper and my academic mind does that. Any academic mind will do that when they're going through a paper. They will be as charitable as possible, right? And this is an old paper. This was like 4 years ago. So I'm going to be as charitable as possible, right? We don't know what Steve might think today if he reads it again, sits down and he's like, oh, actually, right? So yeah, when that brain switches on, the academic brain, you can't help yourself. I think Landon knows. So coming back to it. So the paper says, suppose we label weak atheism, that is non-belief in God's existence, with the same term atheism. Then by symmetry and to avoid special pleading, we should also be allowed to label weak theism, that is non-belief that God does not exist, with the same term theism. Once you do that, a person who is weak atheist without being strong atheist turns out to be agnostic, and a person who is weak theist without being strong theist turns out to be agnostic too. Therefore, the term atheism and theism in their weak senses both collapse into agnosticism. That is the move. Now, the problem with that is the argument proves only a restricted case. One restricted case. It's one restricted case. And then it quietly treats that restricted case as though it was the whole category. That's not how it works, in my opinion. Right? And this is the single biggest flaw in the paper. If I want to break it down further, right, to the bare bones, the paper is saying assume that the subject is a weak atheist but not a strong atheist, right? So in symbols, S does not believe. I will bring up my image again so it's easier to follow. Where is it? Here we go. So if you're going to say that a weak atheist, S is a weak atheist but not a strong atheist, so in symbols, S has this one, the third case, subject does not believe God exists, but not the second one, subject believes God does not exist, right? Does not believe, not believes, does not believe God exists. That's the weak atheism. Given the if we go back and look at the paper's own definition, that means S does not believe God exists. Right? The third one, S does not believe God exists. And also, and by paper's own definition, also does not believe God does not exist. This one, fourth one. In weak atheist terms. So yes, the person is agnostic. That is fine within paper's framework, right? So if we go with a weak theist, but not a strong theist, S has this one. S does not believe God does not exist, but not the first one. S believe God, subject believes God exists. These are two conditional results. A weak atheist who's not a strong atheist is agnostic. A weak theist who's not a strong theist is agnostic. So far, so good. Right? But from those restricted results, the paper jumps to a much larger claim. It's making a much larger claim from these two conclusions or results, that weak atheism such as collapses into agnosticism, and weak theism such as collapses into agnosticism when it does not. Those are instances, two results, which are part of agnosticism, but not collapse into it. Right? That does not follow. Collapse does not follow. Because that requires jumping from two results to a larger claim. You can magnify this, with a counterexample. Take a strong atheist, right? By paper's own definitions, a strong atheist believes that God does not exist. Right? Because that person believes God does not exist, they also do not believe that God exists. So that person counts as a weak atheist too. Because agnostic lacks both positive beliefs, whereas strong atheist has only one of them. So weak atheism cannot be identical to agnosticism. And if we go to the other side, strong theist, by the paper's own definition, that person believes that God exists. Therefore, they do not believe God does not exist. The fourth one, they do not believe that God does not exist. So they count as weak atheists too, but they are not agnostic. Because they do not have a positive belief that God exists. They do have a positive belief, So weak theism cannot be identical to agnosticism either. So the symmetry point is not saving the paper. The symmetry point is actually fine. I'm happy to grant it for the sake of argument. Sure, if you broaden one side, you should willing to broaden the other side symmetrically. Fair enough. But even granting that, you only get this. Weak atheism includes strong atheists and agnostics. Weak theism includes strong theists and agnostics. Agnosticism is the overlap of two broad categories. That is all. That is not a collapse. That is a pair overlapping umbrella labels. That's it. It's not a paradox, it's a Venn diagram. Everybody understood that from the start. And that's why I wanted to cover this paper, because anybody can understand that. It's just that all this, heavy mathematical and logical language can be overwhelming. You don't need to go through all this. Just imagine, there's one circle called weak atheism if I go back to this diagram, right? There's a circle called weak atheism. Let's go with atheism over here and say this is weak atheism. And inside this circle, there are strong atheists and agnostics. Now, imagine another circle, right? Weak theism, which includes theists and agnostics. Where do the circles overlap? At agnosticism. So there's an overlap, right? Here, if I go with this, weak atheism, weak theism, here where agnosticism is. It's an overlap, not a collapse. It hasn't produced a collapse of all distinctions, not a contradiction, not an absurdity, just an overlap region in two broad categories. That's all it is. The paper also says that denying the same weak broadening move to theists would be special pleading. That is the stronger part of this section. I agree with that. Right? Right? It does that here. To avoid special pleading, a theist could request and be allowed to do the same and label weak theism as theism, and in both case failure to hold blah 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 blah, right? Yeah, post it. Go for it. Please post it. I will be very happy to bring it up. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate it. Really, really appreciate it. Boy, I had no faith in myself that I will be able to cover this. Oh. Okay. You know what? I'm gonna take a break and I'm gonna come back. So, Victoria, if you can, because we are almost at the conclusion now, right? So, if you can post your diagram, I'll go, I need a pee break, I'll be back, and then we'll finish this up, and hopefully Chesh is not mad at me for this. Because she said she was planning to use this to upload it on her channel. I don't think so it's good enough. But yeah. Happy first contact day, everyone. All right, cool. Just give me 5 minutes. Yeah, I'll just go and take a break and I'll be back. Till then, I'm just thinking. If I go back to Chesh's channel, if I can bring up something while I take a break. Let's see. Yeah, you know what? You can watch this. This one. Let's do this one. I don't know if you can hear it or not. Just let me know.
And you're never going to.
He's planned to tank.
Why is that a bad thing? Why is that terrible news? Statistics Canada TD Chart 3, Government and Consumer Spending to support Canadian growth in 2026. Canadian contribution to real GDP growth percentage. Oh no, guys. We're doing the mistake of basing our entire economy off of the GDP. Oops. Do we need to go through the do we need to go through the explanation of why using only GDP to judge how rich or not rich or how much money your country has is an absolute fucking moron move? Deficits look quaint. Yeah, comparatively. Most instances, it's still growth. Yeah, look at this. If you look at the actual numbers, the forecast, right? Consumer spending, business investment, and government spending. In 2027, the consumer spending is higher, and the business investment is even higher. And in 2026, the government spending is going to be a little bit higher than the combined. And actually, it's lower. In 2025, the consumer spending is huge, and a tiny little bit of business investment, and then government spending. And then the government spending goes up, the business investment goes down, and it is still not as much. Like, the government spending is not as much as the combined of these two in 2025. And then in 2027, both consumer spending and business spending is more than the government spending, and more than the government spent in 2026, and more than the government spent in 2025, based on the graph that he's showing. So I would be curious to know what the problem is with this graph. Oh, good, we got another conservative. Hi, great. I got a couple of questions for you. I'll repeat the questions, please. If you've got a minute, could you do my survey? I have a survey. Will you participate in my survey? I want to know, how did you get here? How did you find the stream? You said you just came across the channel. Is it like the browse feature? Did you know what I mean? And then the next question is what is 5% of 20% on 100? Right? What is 5% of 20%? You can use 100 as the through number.
I is back. Hello. Victoria, did you post it? Or not? Did you post it? Nope. Hi, did you post it? Victoria? No? It's okay. Welcome back. I'm back. I is back. Where did you post it? In the community? Why it's not updating for me? Nani. I don't see it. Hold on, if I go by... yeah, found it. Thank you. I found it. There we go. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I checked the newest thingies. Thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah, so theist, bleeding zone. So theist is part of the bleeding zone. And then atheist, bleeding zone, that atheist is part of the bleeding zone. Agnostic is also part of the bleeding zone. So you can say that it's an overlap, right? Oh, wow. Landon from the live chat. I went so far as to my DNS resolvers to not resolve Twitter and its related domains, so if someone gives me a link, my systems won't connect to that platform. Holy moly, that's impressive. That is impressive. Whew. All right, so what I would do is, I think so I had another thing open over here, right? So if I look at this thing, right, let me just see if I can do this. This is weak theism, and this is weak atheism, right? Now, if I have, so agnostics would be somewhere here in the blue part. Agnosticism, right? And then inside here, you will have either theist, right? You would have theist inside. Sorry. Can I make it smaller? Can I make it smaller? No. So if I go here, theist will be inside here, right? Somewhere here. Not overlapping, but inside. I can't make it smaller for some reason. I can't make it smaller. I don't know why. And then in here, sorry, let me just bring it here. And then in here will be your atheism, right? And then in the overlap here, god damn it, I need a better Venn diagram. Hold on. Illustrations, smart art. Let's have a look. Venn diagram. Basic interconnected rings, something like that. Linear Venn diagram. No, stacked Venn diagram. Let's see. Okay, if it goes interconnected like that, and then it's the same thing. What the hell? But you get the idea, right? I hope you guys got the idea. I should have made a Venn diagram. Chesh will kill me. Oh, IP address gets examined by a bot. Holy moly. That's added to my first diagram too. It's the same post as the bar diagram. Cool. Nice, nice, nice. So let me see. Basic Venn diagram. Interconnected Venn diagram. Hi, welcome back. So I think so Icarus has got it. So Icarus said, so weak atheist is everyone who is not strong atheist. No, because not strong. Okay, yeah, you got it. So weak atheist is everyone who's not a strong atheist. No, who is not weak atheist. So weak theist is everyone who is not a weak atheist, and weak atheist is everyone who's not theist. And agnostic is everyone who is both weak atheist and weak theist. The last one is correct. The first one is weak theist is everyone who is not atheist. Weak theist is everyone who is not weak atheist, if I'm not wrong, dude. That's how it goes. They want to know if you're live, I suspect. Who wants to know I'm live? Huh? Oh, bots. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so we can grant symmetry. That's fine. If we go back, I'm going to remove this from here. I don't know why it's still up there. Go away. What are you doing? Why are you still here? Window capture 2. Oops, not wrong. Here we go. Okay. So we can grant symmetry. We can grant weak theism as a category. That's fine. All you get is that agnostics fall under both weak labels. That doesn't mean that the labels are equivalent to agnosticism, right? Because those labels still cover strong theist and strong atheist respectively. So the core inferential mistake here is that the paper identifies the agnostic remainder of each weak category, the part left over when you remove the corresponding strong case, and then treats that remainder as though it exhausts the entire category, when it doesn't. Right? That's just not valid. That's invalid reasoning. He's proving a sub case, then renames it as the whole case. That's what he is doing. No, if weak theist is everyone who's not weak atheist, then there would be no overlap. I see your point. I see your point. Yeah, I see your point, Icarus. Yep, I see it. Okay, I see. Yeah, I see. No, the thing is that a weak theist is everyone who is not weak atheist. Yeah, okay, I see. There will be some weak atheists who are weak theists. I see what you mean. Yeah. But again, you know what? Actually, I'll do this. Hold on, I'll do this. Give me a second. Okay. No, actually, I need to look at the picture and that. Okay. That. Okay, I think so this will explain what I'm trying to say. Other people are doing it. Negations are hard, especially without coffee. I've had two cups of coffee, dude. Hold on, I'll show you. Give me a sec. Where does it go? It will go here. Oh, you found it, Landon. Yes, thank you, Landon. I appreciate it. I got it. Landon sent me something. Hold on. This is cool. Landon sent me something. Yay. Yay. That's the best picture Landon sent me. Save image as. Streaming, save. There you go. Yes. Yas. No, go away. Image. Okay. Yep, I saw it in the Discord. I got it. Look, oh my god, this is beautiful. Holy shucks, this is beautiful. Look, that's what I mean. So how did Steve forget this one? So he's saying that this category is a collapse, not an overlap, like agnostic is a collapse. But that's not a collapse, that's an overlap. Right? Even in the diagram, it's an overlap. It's not a collapse. How did he forget this one? Because his thing is not saying that. Oh, from Great Debate Community. Yeah. Thanks, Landon. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's the one that is the one that it is really mattering to me. How did he forget this one? I don't get it. I do not get it. This is the one. This is what we are talking about. And this paper is treating this overlap here in the agnostic region as a collapse. That, you know, the distinction is not there anymore when it's there. Steve, this is from your own thing. You wrote the diagram for Steve. Oh, Landon. That is so nice of you. Now I get to use it. I could probably write a paper criticizing Steve's thing. you know what? Maybe I will. We'll see. So yeah. Steve used to call it the McRae-Knoll diagram. Oh, really? It can be the Knoll-Sherma diagram now. So yeah. So he subset again. Subset is not an identity. Remainder is not totality. Right? Remainder is not totality. So maybe Steve thinks that the sides of the diagram totally overlap in the weak condition. I don't get it. I think so he's flipped it. He thinks that the strong atheism overlaps the weak atheism. I think so that's where he's got it wrong. That's where he's got it wrong, in my opinion. If weak atheism, like we see in this diagram, right? If it's just agnosticism, then what do we call a person who positively believes there is no God, who still on paper's own definition counts as a weak atheist? Right? This one here. Do it, write the paper, I'll be happy to review it, Manya. Yes, let's do it. All right, okay, alrighty, let's do it. I can do it. Yeah, I've already got the work done, so you can say that this is a research stream for that paper, right, Landon? So yeah. So the moment you ask the question, right, you know that question, right? What do we call a person who positively believes there's no God? And so who on paper still counts as a weak atheist? Because according to them, agnosticism is just weak atheism. Like, no, it's an overlap, not a collapse. Yeah, you can guess all you want, dude. That's what we are here for. We are examining it. So, right? So the moment you ask that question, the collapse thesis starts to look impossible, actually. So this whole section was, I'll take this picture out of the way. But this whole section, this one, right? With all this, with all this here, was supposed to be the climax of the paper, but actually gives away the problem more clearly, or most clearly. It highlights the problem. It shows that weak categories are broad enough to include agnostics. It does not show that weak categories reduce to agnosticism. That's false. So if we remember one point from this whole exercise we've done today, is that agnosticism sits inside the overlap of the weak categories. It does not replace them. That's what it is. Right? I guess we can use this diagram as the Manya-Knoll diagram now, if Steve is not using it anymore. I think so he just got confused. I don't get it. So, yeah, it's like, why didn't he use this diagram? I don't get it. He could have actually made his paper stronger, in my opinion. His argument could have been made stronger using this diagram. Correct me if I'm wrong, Landon. Yeah, we could co-author it. I'm happy to do that. I've already got the notes here, so why not? Give me another weekend. I might come up with the draft for you, and I might send it to you, Nandan. How about that? Give me another weekend. So let's go to the conclusion now, okay? Let's finish it off. We have already been here for 11 hours. Not 11 hours, sorry. Started for 3 hours. Sorry, I'm tired. I did this to myself. So the conclusion is, we are therefore forced to conclude that by accepting the entreaty of the presumption of atheism, to have atheism to be understood in the negative or weak case condition, it would be semantically possible to by subalternation, measure for subject to be an atheist, theist, and an agnostic at the same time due to semantic collapse given the allowance of labeling of the weaker case conditions of the alternations as theism and atheism. We saw in the diagram that's not how it works, right? The semantic collapse renders these terms therefore ambiguous. Again, those are two different things. Having more than one usage and the distinction being distinct are two different things. So Steve has gotten that wrong too, in my opinion. Or at best redundant, and consequently should subject the request of the presumption of atheism to have atheism understood in the negative to avoid semantic collapse of terms. So we have now arrived at the conclusion, and the conclusion says, in effect, that accepting Flu's weak or negative case condition for atheism makes it semantically possible for a subject to be atheist, theist, and agnostic at the same time, right? I'm repeating myself, because there's a semantic collapse. So this is where the quiet part is being said loud, right? It claims not just that broad labels can overlap, not just that terms can become blurry, but that categories collapse badly enough for the whole proposal should be rejected. Again, conclusion is stronger than the argument. What has been shown? At most, if you use weak broad senses of atheism and theism, then agnostics may fall under both broad labels. That is the actual result, right? If we use them in broad sense. Hi Polar, welcome back. And again, ambiguity is not redundancy, nor it is a collapse, right? If we go right at the beginning, if I go at the beginning of my notes, right? And if you look at the definitions, ambiguity means a word has more than one possible sense. Overlap means two broad categories may share some of the same cases. Collapse would mean the categories themselves have stopped doing distinct work. That's not ambiguity. So yeah. So, and even if we are like generous, right? If we go very generous, we could say, yeah, broad labeling creates confusion. Ordinary response to confusion is clarification. How you clarify, you distinguish the strong from weak. You distinguish assertive disbelief from mere non-belief. You do not need to say the entire framework implodes. So, in my opinion, this is what the conclusion should have said. Using broad, weak senses of theism and atheism may cause agnostics to fall under both umbrella labels, which can create ambiguity unless the strong and weak senses are kept distinct. That could be a modest, and you could defend a modest conclusion that can be defended. But it makes a much bigger conclusion, which is less defensible. Landon from the live chat, I believe that at one time Steve did understand mathematical logic reasonably well. His understanding of reactor physics was also sound, in my opinion. I'll leave philosophical reasoning to others. Yeah, sure. And if we go back and look at it, there's one more important point here, right? The conclusion says that terms become ambiguous or at best redundant, but these are not the same charge, right? As I said, collapse and ambiguous are not the same thing. Ambiguous means one label may refer to more than one kind of case. Redundant means label no longer adds anything distinct at all. And the paper has not proven redundancy, in my opinion. It never proves the weak atheism and weak theism do no independent classificatory work. In fact, the whole paper depends on them doing independent classificatory work in order to run the square at all, right? Keep in mind the background to which he argued this. Hi, intrigued. We are almost finished now. So, yeah, so even paper's own rhetoric, it's wobbly between several levels of criticism: ambiguity, overlap, redundancy, collapse. These are not interchangeable. You cannot interchange these terms. That's not how it works. So, my verdict is that the paper identifies a possible ambiguity in broad labeling, but then it overstates that ambiguity into a thesis of semantic collapse. And it reaches that overstatement by confusing broad category membership with identity of positions. That's the whole story. Landon Knoll. Most people use terms like atheist, agnostic in a fuzzy way, such that someone skilled in rhetoric can trip them up. Yeah. You just got freed of your obligations. Yeah, the case has been overstated. That's what I've maintained from the start. It's overstated. But there's also this, the words have been interchanged here when they cannot be interchanged, like ambiguity, overlap, redundancy, and collapse. Right? So Steve may need to go back and revisit these definitions and clarify them and rewrite the paper accordingly. So the paper is not proving the collapse, in my opinion. It proves at most the need for better labels. I think so that's what it does. So yeah. I'll read the last part, the acknowledgements, because that's important. We'll do the acknowledgements. I would like to thank Dr. Shoaib A. Malik, whose motivation was invaluable in writing this paper, Dr. Graham Oppie, whose prolific philosophical writings were my inspiration for this paper, Landon Kurt Knoll for his invaluable suggestions, and to all those who have supported my work over the years. And there I stumble. So yeah. So I'll just make a few clarifications, right? It just to give an appendix of definitions and stuff. I think Intrigue Feline from the live chat, I think I can analogize it. When Chesh are asking Canadian conservatives as to why one ought to work for Polyev, and they all only come with why they don't vote for Carney. This is what is happening with atheism. Sure, I can see that. Yeah. So some of the faults that I observed as I was going through this paper was it confuses not believing a claim with believing the opposite claim. That's huge. Not believing that God exists is not the same thing as believing God does not exist. Second, it misapplied bivalence. Either God exists or not exists, yeah, fine, but it does not follow that every subject believes one side or the other. So that's misapplication of bivalence, in my opinion. Third, it mistakes one-way implication for equivalence. Right? Strong atheism implies weak atheism, but weak atheism is broader than strong atheism. Same on the theist side. Fourth, and I think so it's the most important, it mistakes overlap between broad categories for collapse of distinct positions. That is the master error here. So the paper, in my conclusion, the paper raises a real question about language, but it does not solve it well. Its formal, accessories apparatus gives the appearance of a knockdown result, but the result does not follow. The categories do not collapse, the labels overlap. Right? Landon from the live chat, that Mr. G guy or that presupposition guy use their skills with rhetoric to go after people who are quote unquote non-believers. If your terms are not sound, they drive a wedge into your terminology cracks. Yep. Intrigue feline from the live chat, automatically means a vote in approval of. Obviously, that does not follow. Yeah. So yeah, finally, overlap is not collapse, ambiguity is not equivalence, and a broad category is not identical to one of its subcases. Right? Landon from the live chat, the most important and powerful defensive against a rhetorician is I don't know, and then reject when they had you what they believe is their answer. What they hand you, what they believe is their answer. Oh, okay. So yeah, it's not a worthless paper. I'll be fair, because that's what my brain is, my academic brain is doing. No paper is worthless. It's not a worthless paper. It's not a paper that doesn't have an interesting point. But its conclusion is outrunning its own logic, or it's stepping ahead of its own logic. Which part? What? Did I miss? What did I miss? Sorry, did I miss something? What did I miss? What? Oh my god. Question, where does strong agnosticism fall here? I don't know if there's a strong agnosticism. It's just agnosticism. I don't think so it's strong or weak. What would strong agnosticism look like? Because strong theism and strong atheism will not overlap. Right? Or will they? They could. Could they? No, I don't think so. No. No, they can't. That vote does not entail that by not responding means you approve it. Oh, really? It didn't show up on the live chat? Holy moly. Yeah, it's not defining the strong agnostic state, but I'm just thinking. Strong atheism and strong theism would not overlap, would they? They won't. That's a question that we could address in our paper, Landon. That's a good question. So yeah, the fairest thing I can say is that it identifies a potential ambiguity in broad uses of atheism and theism. The strongest thing I can say is that it repeatedly confuses broader labels with narrower positions and then mistakes overlap for collapse. And that's why I don't think the paper is establishing what it claims to establish. So yeah. And also, like, to be fair to the author, I think there are 3 things the paper gets it right, at least reasonably right. Yeah. One, there's a genuine issue about whether weak or strong uses of key terms. Symmetry challenge, that's real. And the square or opposition framework is a useful way, right, of displaying relationships amongst belief states, right? So that's it got three things right, but then it just jumped ahead of its own conclusion. I think that's what happened here. Yeah, I would be interested too, Landon. That's a good question. But actually, both are possible. If you believe Christ as a god, you can also believe Thor as a god is false, thereby believing both strong theism and strong atheism. Yeah, but it's like, then it would be gods, right? That gods exist. Then the proposition would be, right? That gods exist. Local theist and local atheist. Here we go. No, that's not addressed in this paper, Intrigue, you're right. Yeah, the P is different. Yes, the P will be different. So in the end, I would just say is that a formal notation, can sometimes create an illusion that a conclusion has been earned just because the route to it looks technical, right? But technical vocabulary or language does not rescue an invalid inference. So if the underlying move is from overlap to identity, it stays invalid no matter how many truth tables you use. Yeah. Victoria from the live chat, wouldn't strong and weak just be modifiers of conviction? I think so. The strong positions are the absolutes, if I'm not wrong. But they're still beliefs, so yeah. As such, it should be possible to be very convinced of agnosticism. Yeah. As Manya has noticed, this is really difficult stuff. Landon from the live chat, I do not see how briefly considering how the term strong agnostic could be applied. Perhaps the term is an oxymoron, or perhaps it is a combination of zones. You to think about that. Yeah. As I said, we could think about this in our paper, Landon, if you want to. Icarus from the live chat said, Victoria, agnosticism is not being convinced. What is the strong version of not being convinced? I think so. Agnosticism is just suspending belief, right? So what's the strong version of that? Of suspending belief? If you ask that question, right? That's what it is. One could think of not believing it is knowable or knowing it is unknowable. Former weak agnosticism, latter strong. Good questions. Next question. So yeah, weak agnosticism, I don't know. Strong agnosticism, we can't know. Strong agnosticism, we can't know. Yeah, sure. But then it's a knowledge claim, isn't it? And if you think that belief is a subset of knowledge, not the other way around, yeah. Interesting, very interesting. Something to think about. Maybe put it on the community tab, put it in the comment section of this live stream later. Intrigue Feline from the live chat, but I repeat, we are talking about a different kind of agnosticism. Landon from the live chat, we can't know might be better in the atheist zone. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because it kind of becomes a knowledge claim, isn't it? But aren't the others knowledge claims too? Well, if you think that knowledge is a subset of belief, then yes. But if you think that belief is a subset of knowledge, that's different, isn't it? Icarus, none of those are knowledge claims. It's only about belief. Perhaps as weak atheism is strong agnosticism. Perhaps because they do overlap, right? They are overlapping. Huh. So you could... No, you don't think so? Landon rejected the message. Didn't make sense. You misspoke because then weak theism would also be strong agnosticism. Yeah. Right. Oh, you misspoke. You mistyped. Yeah, that's fine. That happens. That happens. I like this conversation. Please continue. This is very interesting. I like it. Okay, I think so. I've done my part. We'll see if it can. Landon, I'm definitely interested in writing a paper. Seriously, I would love to write a paper on this. And my use of speech to text, Landon from the live chat. My use of speech to text produced a critical typo. That happens to the best of us, doesn't it? Yeah. That happens to the best of us. It is something that has been discussed for nearly 200 years. And I'm happy to make the contribution. Well. Okay, so. That's a good question, Victoria. I'm really, really thankful that you asked that question. My Oxford Dictionary is doing some heavy lifting today, not a native English speaker. That's fine. That's fine. That's completely fine. You're doing great, actually. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah. I'm delaying the inevitable, aren't I? Stop the stream. It's really early morning for me. Really early morning. And I've had 3 cups of coffee, proper coffee. I don't think so. I'm going to be sleeping soon. Yeah, go for it. Listen, please listen to it. And if I have said anything that needs to be corrected, please do. I would really appreciate that. I'm always happy to learn, especially from you, Landon, because it's been a while since I've done this stuff. So yeah, it would be good to, bounce off ideas of other people and learn from them. Always. Oh, it has just been 6 years since you killed someone over this? Oh my god. Oh, mold. Okay, mold. This. Oh really, Landon from the live chat. A cafe stronger by Easter, going by Mian people, going to church once a year out of tradition. The talk around me in connection with the show is delightfully fun. No, Victoria, your diagrams were perfect. They're perfect. And I loved it that you color coded them. That was so awesome. I loved it. I'm in a cafe surrounded by... okay. Stronger. Text. The speech to text is like, nope, I'm on Easter holiday. Don't know where that came from. It happens. It happens. Autocorrect is like, I'm in a funny mood today. Let me just, come up with a totally alarming word. But yeah, so this is what I thought, where some slip up happened with this paper. And again, as I said, it's not a useless paper. It's not like, oh, this paper needs to be torn up and thrown away. No, that's not my approach as an academic person. Because surprisingly, when I go academic, I'm not in petty mode. I'm trying to be fair. When I'm in petty mode, don't expect me to be academic. Nuh-uh. Nuh-uh. But yeah. I think so. I'll get out of here before Chesh is like, what are you doing? Why are you making it a 4-hour stream? But yeah. Please post your comments under the live stream, and thank you for coming. And what I would say is, Landon, let's talk and discuss about getting a paper out. Why not? Half of the work is already done, so yeah, more than half actually is already done. There's just one more category that Victoria brought up, which is very interesting, which would be very good to add to the paper. I think so, to spice it up a bit. But yeah, Dapper, Landon, Canadians, Easter churchgoers, in contrast to this discussion, is a delightful contrast. Ah, okay. Join the philosophy stream with Chesh. A mix of USers and Canadians. Ah, that's cool. That's cool. That's nice. Is the church full? Alberta. Ooh, nice. So yeah. Alrighty. Thank you everyone for coming, and have a good day. Bye.
Oh? See, that would be intimidating if you were, well, intimidating.
Are you mocking me?
Oh no. Yeah. You were, well, intimidating.
Are you mocking me?
Oh no. Yeah.